Weekly vlog number 38. Another week where there's really not a whole lot that happened, though you can see that you're actually watching some game footage. That is because I did not actually renew my WoW account, even though that's the game you're watching. What I did is I logged into my WoW account and I looked to see if I had an available trial that I could play. And it turns out that since I don't have Warlords of Draenor yet, because I haven't really been able to afford it, even though I kind of want that expansion still so I can actually renew my account and play, I could actually get the 10-day trial to play WoW with the Warlords of Draenor expansion. So I have playing a lot of WoW lately, and it hasn't actually caused any problems with my graphics card drivers or anything, so I've been recording footage for that so I could use that on these videos instead of just seeing my face on camera. So right now I'm not actually even using my camcorder to record my face or anything. I'm just using my mic on my laptop and adding the audio to the video, so yay! Of course, I also mentioned on Twitter, which also then posted up to Facebook, that the LED on my Hydro Copper 980, which is my primary graphics card, actually stopped turning on, which is a little weird. Then heavy load, it would actually turn on very, very dimly, but now it's just not turning on at all. And I don't know if that is because the motherboard got worse, or if the LED and the graphics card itself is just fucked up. And if the LED in the graphics card itself is just fucked up, then it could be that the graphics card itself is just faulty and the motherboard is fine, but I don't know, and I won't know that until after I replace motherboard and everything. But I'm hoping that the motherboard is just fine, because I'm gonna get really fucking pissed off if I have problems even after I swap to the new ASRock motherboard that I already bought and use the new RAM that I already got and the CPU that I still plan on getting. Of course, it's still a bit of an upgrade too, so I won't be too pissed, but I'll still be a bit pissed because I'm not going to notice a huge difference in speed between the two, and it'll mean that I'll have to send the graphics card in for a replacement again, and basically just prove to them, hey, yeah, this graphics card is fucking up, and I need a replacement, and I want this replacement to actually work properly. And if I do have to send it in, I'm going to force those fuckers to actually pay for shipping themselves, because I'm not going to pay for shipping for getting a graphics card replaced when they sent me a faulty one. But I don't know yet, and it is possible that the motherboard just got a little worse, and now it's not really feeding the proper power to the graphics card, and it's causing the LED to actually just turn off and not turn on or anything. So I did check GeForce Experience, and yeah, the LED is actually supposed to be on in GeForce Experience. It doesn't have it marked as being off. And also sorry if this commentary sounds a little bit nasally today. My nose is oddly stuffy. Happens every once in a while. Mostly days I take a shower. It seems to happen the most. I don't know why. My nose is annoying. I do not like my nose. My nose is always stuffy, and that's actually the biggest reason why my commentary may sometimes sound nasally. It's not really because of the mic, it's because my nose itself. I'm using an Electro Voice is EV. So I'm using an Electro Voice RE20 mic, which is a $400 to $500 mic, and it's fucking amazing. And it's using shock mount and mic stand, obviously, but it's also plugged into a Scarlett 2i2 USB preamp. And all of it together, it's just awesome sound. But the reason I went through so many mics over the course of my YouTube channel is because I was trying to find one that would work really well with my voice, and it's really been kind of hard to nail one down, and the last one kind of emphasized the nasaliness a bit too much. The last mic I was using was an AKG Perception 220, also known as AKG P220, but this one, it seems to actually give a little more clarity, but sometimes my nose I can actually hear as I speak instead of hearing it after it's been recorded. And right now, this is one of those times where I can hear the nasaliness as I'm speaking instead of waiting until I hear the audio playing back from having recorded it. So anyways, yesterday I actually went over to another town, city area, and I actually did that because I was going to get a couple autos for my fish tank, and I'm actually going to add a little bit of footage from the fish tank so you can actually see what's going on, because you can see the fish tank here, which is actually now in front of you. There's a lot of algae. And that algae, actually you can see on the left there is a spotted cory, and another one came out from that little gravel cave I made there. Gravel cave that actually seemed to like a lot more than the other cave in the back, but those two spotted cories are what I ended up getting because Petco didn't actually have any autos. You can see there's one auto swimming around there who actually seems really happy since I added those two cories. Like literally the moment I put those two cories in, they swam down, and my auto seemed to notice because one of them swam into the cave where the audio was hiding, and I guess they just sort of saw each other and they both swam out. My auto has been actually swimming around the tank outside of the cave pretty much non-stop since I put those 2 Cories in there. And before then, my auto was only ever swimming outside of that cave when the light was off and I was going to bed and everything, because my auto seems to actually kind of hate the light or something. I'm not exactly sure why, but he was always just staying under the cave and out of the light, and he would freak out whenever the light was on. But now you can see he's actually swimming around and stuff. And as for the algae, yeah, I wanted to get 2 more autos, but Petco didn't have any autos, as I already mentioned, so I had to get the next best thing, which were the 2 spotted Cories. They're not as efficient at cleaning the algae as autos were, because I did have 2 autos before, though they ended up kind of getting infected by some rotting food because they were hanging around the back of the in-tank filter I was using at the time. And yeah, the air bubbles in the tank and everything are off right now because I'm recording this audio, but I turn filter and air bubbles and everything back on when I'm done recording. So anyways, yeah, I did have 2 other autos in there before, but they ended up dying because they were hanging around the back intake of the filter that I had in the tank. But that area also would get some flakes stuck to it, and they were back there so long that the rotting food, the algae that grows, it's kind of this fuzzy stuff. That's actually algae that grows when you see food rotting in the tank. That algae ended up getting through their slime coating and getting into them and infecting them, and it just grew and it eventually killed them. And was because they were avoiding the light and they were just freaking out and staying right behind the filter all the time for way too long. But everything else seems fine. And I think there was one Serpe that ended up having problems back then as well, but I also have not been using that filter for a long time now. And I am using an out of tank filter, which is just out of the camera's range there. And the autos obviously would be a much better choice to actually clean up the algae, but the algae only actually started sometime after my snail died. I'm not actually sure what killed that snail. It was a little weird how it died, but it's probably all the algae that was covering its shell probably eventually just sucked the life out of it by getting into its shell, because the shell of a snail is basically kind of like part of its body. It's almost like its spine, but it's almost like, I guess the best comparison between a snail's shell would be a person's skin. Your skin you need in order to keep yourself together and be alive. If your skin gets infected and stuff, starts falling off, you could die. You need skin in order to survive, and the snail needs the shell. Inside the snail's shell, it's got a bunch of organs, it's got its intestines, it's got all this stuff. So if the shell gets compromised and stuff, then if it gets damaged, it can kill the snail. And that snail was a bit of a smartass too. So whenever it got to the top of the glass, the tank, when it would go up and get a breath of air, because they don't have gills, they can't breathe underwater. Whenever it would go up to get a breath of air, in order for it to get down, it would just literally let go of the glass and just let itself fall down. And I think it took a bit too much damage to its shell, mixed with the amount of algae it actually had covering its shell. And it did have a little algae when I got it as well. So it probably wasn't in the best condition when I got the thing, and I think it was a combination of it being a smartass and having algae on its shell already that kind of got it killed. There's also a lot of information online saying that spotted Cories aren't algae eaters, but I have been actually watching them, and I did already notice that, yeah, they are eating some of the algae. They're not anywhere near as efficient as the autos, but I have seen that some of the algae they've been going over, they've been sucking off the glass and eating, and it actually has seemed to reduce the amount of algae on the other side of the tank. The side of the tank which is exactly opposite to where the camera was looking at when you guys were seeing a little clip from that. They were also eating a little bit of the flakes once the flakes got smushed up enough, and there are no leftover flakes rotten at the bottom of the tank from when I fed the fish before I went to bed last night. So they did eat those, and my auto is obviously a lot more active now, so he seems happy. He kind of, it looks like he likes the fact that there's Cories in there now. He didn't really care much when there were 2 other autos in there before for some reason. Those ones, I guess they were a slightly different breed of auto because there's such a wide range. The auto I have in there is, I think, about 2 inches, maybe a little longer than 2 inches long, and he's fully grown. I've had him for quite a while now. And the autos I had before that ended up dying, they seemed to stop growing after they got to about 1 inch in length. And the Cories in there are, I think, only about 1 inch or 1.2 inches or something. I don't remember what the thing said, but they're only supposed to get to about 1.9 inches, so just a little smaller than the auto is that's already in there. So it's going to be kind of neat when they're fully grown, and they do seem to be getting along really well. Of course, the Serpe and the Neons don't really care about the Cories. and they never bother my auto anyways because the audio is armor. I don't think the Corys do have armor, but they do have that color. There was a cheaper type of Corys over at Petco that I had an option of getting. I don't know why they were cheaper. They would also have gotten to 2.5 inches instead of 1.9 inches, and they were the albino Corys. And I was thinking about getting those ones, but I wanted to get something that looked like an auto because I actually really like the way Plecos look, but a Pleco gets massive and I can't actually fit a Pleco in the tank that I have, so I have to use an auto. So if I wanted an auto, I had to get something that looked similar to an auto, and the closest thing I could get was the spotted Cory. Because even though they did have Chinese algae eaters, those ones are apparently somewhat aggressive to other fish. And though, yeah, my Serpe did kind of peck at the bag when I was floating them before releasing them into the tank. I didn't release the water out of the bag into the tank, though. I just poured them into the net and then carefully added them to the tank from the net. But they were pecking at the bag of them in the tank, and I just fed the Serpe while the Corys were actually in the bag. So when I actually released the Corys into the water, the Serpe really didn't care, and they're also used to the auto being around, so they're probably also used to the colorations of the auto, and also kind of look at the spotted Corys probably as another auto or something. I'm not completely sure, but that is part of the reason why I did get spotted Corys instead of the albino Corys, even though I kind of wanted a larger algae eating type of fish. Even though Corys aren't specific algae eaters, they do eat algae. They'll eat other stuff as well. They're kind of a little more like a snail than an actual auto or another type of specific algae eater. But the colors themselves, if fish see colors, or even just the patterns, just the similarity between the auto and the Corys, it may actually make them stay away from the Corys a bit more. And that's kind of what I was hoping when I decided to get the spotted instead of the albino, even though I also chose the spotted because it looked as close to the auto as possible. And it seems like the choice actually was a good choice to make because my auto seems really happy so far. And I'm hoping that after a few weeks or so, the algae will be either reduced or it won't actually grow any more than it is. And hopefully, since my auto is more active now, he'll actually be eating more because he usually was just staying under the cave and just sucking off the glass under the cave that he hides under. And the glass under the cave he hides under, even though it never really gets any light because that cave is never really moved, so no algae can really grow under there. There's still bacteria that can grow there and everything, but the area under that cave is actually pretty clean. And there's actually an area just the immediate area around the cave is also pretty clean, so my auto has obviously been keeping that area pretty clean, but the rest of the tank should also get cleaned up a little bit more. The stuff that my Corys don't actually clean up should be cleaned up specifically by my auto. And I know you can't see it on those two clips that I showed, but the other side of the tank that I mentioned is actually cleaner. There was a strip along the corner where the silicone is to keep the water in and hold the glass together, and that was actually mostly covered with brown algae, and it is actually now mostly cleaned up. So that's getting to be pretty good, and they are just really energetic little fish. The spotted Corys are just really energetic. They've been moving around ever since I got them, even when they were in the bag and I was getting them brought home. But it's kind of neat. So anyways, as for the rest of the stuff, I also ended up going into Goodwill while we're going to Petco. No, I did not actually buy the fish I have. I was going to buy them because I had a little bit of money in cash, but my mom ended up just paying for them, so that was kind of cool. But I did go into Goodwill and I was thinking, okay, maybe they'll have some old games or something. And I looked around and it turns out that I actually found an original Xbox, not an Xbox One, but the original Xbox, the big black bulky console with the round circle that said Xbox on it. It was a little beat up, probably would have worked. It didn't have any cables or anything, but it was in there for $10. I was like, okay, I have to get this. I put it in the cart. I thought about it and I looked around a little bit more and I found two original PlayStations, the PlayStation 1. And I was thinking, okay, well, if I get an Xbox, I gotta get one of these PlayStations. This one opens well. It also has no cables though, which kind of sucks, but you know, getting these in Goodwill probably cheaper than buying them on Amazon with the cables, and probably get the cables for them pretty cheap too. So I thought about it. I eventually I put the Xbox back. I was like, you know what? I can't get this. I gotta save up. There's stuff I still need to get. I need money. And if I get this, then I'm also going to have to get this GameCube that I found that's $13 because I want these 3 consoles and none of them have cables, and it would just be a money sink. I would need to get the cables. Then I would need to get games for them, even though I have a GameCube controller. I would also need to get controllers for the PlayStation and the Xbox, and it was just annoying that I had to put it back and I couldn't get it, but I wanted those so badly that kind of bugged the hell out of me, so I ended up leaving Goodwill without actually getting anything. Of course, that was also before I got the fish too, but whatever. It ended up being pretty good, except when I did get home, I did find that those 2 clips, you also saw there were only 3 Serpe and 1 neon. One of the neons, it was the one that was beat up, picked on and stuff from when I got it, something around a year ago or more. Every fish just picked on it. It had almost none of its fins left. It just wasn't regrowing its fins because it was bit too deeply on the fin area, and it couldn't actually regrow that section of fin. It ended up dying a while back, and that kind of sucked. But then I also saw, well, okay, some reason one of the Serpe is really pale today. It was swimming around fine. I've seen one of the Serpe is pale sometimes as well. I'm not actually sure why. I always called him Ghost because when I got that fish, is actually the smallest Serpe in there. When I got him, you could see that he was always real pale and he was much smaller than the others. He's almost half the size of the other Serpe that are in the tank, but the Serpe that ended up dying was actually one of the larger ones, and it ended up being real pale. I didn't actually know why they were pale, but I figured, okay, well, I've had Serpe be pale before for some reason. They were just fine. They acted fine. They didn't look sick or anything. Well, they didn't behave sick. I guess they looked sick because they were pale, but they didn't behave like they were sick or anything, and they behaved just perfectly fine and healthy, and their color returned after a little while, but it's probably just them freaking out because I cleaned the tank out, and they would probably calm down and return their color and be just fine anyways. But I think it was not that they got sick or anything. I think for some reason they just died from some reason. Maybe they're just old age, or I don't know what the hell it was. I don't think they were actually specifically sick though, because it was really sudden. They were actually in the cave and couldn't have floated over there. They would have been sucked up, held against the filter. Actually, the cave actually has no water flowing into it from the flow of the tank because I have the cave turned around, so nothing that can actually get stuck in there, because some flakes were actually getting shot into the cave and kind of dirtying it up before I turned the cave to not actually be in the direction where the flow of the water would actually enter it. So it looks like what it did is it went in the cave to just sleep a little bit, and it just suddenly up and died for no real reason that I can think of, which kind of sucks, but I don't know. I do have those 2 spotted quarries now, so even though that Serpe died, I don't know, I guess it's possible, because that's also possible. I'm pretty sure I've got a few Serpe that I've had for a couple years now that managed to survive. I have had kind of bad luck with Serpe and neons, but they seem to be doing all right, and it's possible that that one was just, it went through hell when I first got fish because I didn't know what the hell I was really doing, and I had to learn and figure stuff out because I thought it was going to be a lot more simple than it is to actually keep them alive. Didn't realize you had to actually do these weekly cleans of the tank and everything. So I only have 3 Serpe remaining, and I have 1 Neon Tetra remaining, but I don't know, after those ones die, I'll probably just switch over to only having neons. I'm not going to ever mix neons with Serpe ever again, because the Serpe did kind of pick on the neons when I first put them in a tank. They don't really do that anymore. They kind of just leave each other alone. The neon kind of swims around with the Serpe a little bit, kind of almost treats them like other neons, except he doesn't play with them. So I don't know. I'll see what I'm going to do when the Serpe and neon I have end up dying, but I'll probably swap to only having algae eaters like autos, and I'll probably, I don't know, I'll probably get a couple more quarries eventually someday. I don't think the neons I get in the future will actually have problems as long as I don't put Serpe in the tank as well. They'll probably swim around, I'll be a lot more happy and just more prone to playing around and not actually getting hurt and actually fighting each other or having any problems or having messed up fins. They'll probably just be a lot healthier. And of course, the algae eaters will be just really easy to take care of because I do have little algae wafer cookie things that I can put in the tank. There's actually one in there already, but the quarries don't really seem to care much about it, even though that is some type of food that people say you should give them, and it is one that they should eat, but even my auto doesn't really care much for those little algae cookies, but just in case, I did throw one in there just to be absolutely sure they have something to eat, even though they will also eat those flakes that are left over after I feed my neons and my Serpe each day. The Serpe were also pecking at the algae cookie that I threw in there already, and it's alright if they eat that too. It's not all algae, and they're also omnivores as well, so it's not like they only need meat or they only need some sort of a plant thing. And they can eat the algae cookies as well. Even though it is a veggie algae cookie, they can eat it as well. It's not going to hurt them. They have eaten brine shrimp before, but I ran out of brine shrimp a long time ago. So it's not really going to be a whole big deal if they eat that cookie or if they only eat flakes. They'll be fine. And while I was actually over at Petco, I also picked up a big ass bag of dog treats for my dog because I guess somehow he knew there was a lot of food made for Thanksgiving. And the day before Thanksgiving, we had just a lot of awesome food here. And I guess he somehow knew this because when I ended up getting food, I was eating, he was just staring at me. Of course, everyone else was asleep at the time, but I got the food because I woke up late and I brought it out here and I was eating. And even after I finished eating, he just stared at me for 3 or 4 hours straight. He was just waiting for something. And I guess he knew there was something going on that was kind of big. So I got him some treats just so I can give him something every day because even though he does get food from whatever scraps I have left over or even chicken bones, of course I've mentioned chicken bones before, I just wanted to make sure I got him something a little extra. And of course my mom also paid for that as well. So I didn't really have to actually use the $5.77 in cash that I actually have. And I also, of course, just a little while ago, I ordered the remaining presents that I have to get for people that I actually get presents for. So hopefully I'll be able to actually get the CPU I want in either January or in February. I'm not actually sure when I'll be able to afford that. The latest I should be able to get that CPU is in February though. So hopefully it does prove that there's nothing wrong with the graphics card, and if that LED is messing up, then hopefully it's just that the LED is just retarded and the graphics card itself is fine. And if the LED does end up working on the new motherboard, then that does mean that, yeah, the motherboard I'm using isn't actually giving proper power to that graphics card. So I don't know, I'll see what happens. And this is actually getting to be a pretty long video, so I guess I'm gonna go ahead and end it here. I don't know how I managed to ramble this long. If you guys enjoyed this video, let me know with a comment, like, subscribe, and or a share. And I'll see you guys on the next video next week or on some other video. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys then. Bye.